Howdy, my name is Gianna Lopez. I chose to present my research on the effects of land use patterns on honeybee communities. I first want to start off by introducing the subject of this class for the past 5 weeks, which was Apis mellifera. This is a eusocial insect. Eusociality is just animals, especially insects, which have cooperative care of offspring. They have multi-generations of that species living together, as well as an organized division of labor. And then leading into that is temporal polytheism, which is the division of labor based on age. So Apis mellifera perform tasks based on their age. They feed on pollen and nectar, and like most insects, they do have segmented bodies. They are separated into 3 parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. Ecosystem services provided by these honeybees include pollination, which do help to regulate crops and agriculture. As far as land use patterns, which is what I'm hoping to look at, this is just how land is utilized, mostly how land is arranged by how it's utilized. So certain land use patterns do require encroachment onto natural lands, and these can fall in between 2 categories: developed, which is usually developed land use patterns, which are usually like residential, commercial, and industrial patterns. So residential would be like suburban neighborhoods. Commercial would be cities or stores, plazas, while industrial would be factories. Undeveloped land use patterns are things that we really haven't touched or have maybe set aside, like forests, wetlands, and just water. So like rivers and oceans and lakes. Those are technically land use patterns, just we're not using that land. So I wanted to ask for my research question: how do land use patterns impact honeybee communities? First, I wanted to discuss the habitat loss and degradation that can occur between certain land use patterns. So this would mostly be in the sense of developed land use patterns. They create a need for clearing land. When we live in cities or even the suburbs, we need infrastructure such as roads, railways, homes, irrigation systems, sewer systems. The food web in these natural areas that we've pushed ourselves into are greatly disrupted by and fragmented. And there is a strong correlation between colony loss and land use pattern found in one of the studies cited. Developed land use poses the threat of anthropogenic pollution to honeybee homes. So this would be pollution that is caused by humans. This would be things like burning of fossil fuels and pesticides, which run off into water and natural areas. So the research study that I was referencing is, I may butcher this, but it's NOG 2009. They did a study on how land use patterns influence colony loss. And so here we have 4 graphs, A through D. A is cropland, B is pasture, C is rangeland, and D would be just developed land, mostly like urban, residential, commercial lands. So this was a change in 4 different land types in the US correlated to the loss in number of honeybee colonies. And we can see that mostly in D, that especially over time, there is a greater loss of honeybee colonies, as opposed to these more natural or undisturbed land types or land use patterns, which don't really see like such a strong loss. Second, we see an impact on honeybee health. So anthropogenic pollution from urban land use areas, like I mentioned earlier, would be runoff of pollution, pesticides that are being sprayed onto farmland, cropland, that do affect these honeybees. So mercury accumulation has been discovered in honeybee bodies. The levels have been shown to increase with level of urbanization. And then cadmium exposure is also seen, and it causes cellular damage to the fat in honeybee bodies, as well as weakens the honeybee's immune system. And then cadmium is just released from human activities such as mining and are especially present in phosphate fertilizers, which are heavily used in agriculture for crops. Figure 2 right here just shows sort of in like an animated cartoon sense the graph of a level of urbanization versus mercury accumulation in honeybees. So we see that as we go from rural to suburban to urban, the level of mercury does greatly increase and it just keeps accumulating. And this is from the Waker 2022 study. Last, we have the impact on honeybee food. So we're mostly discussing the actual composition and nutritional value of pollen, which honeybees do eat depending on land use pattern. Natural landscapes offer a greater diversity of flowers than, say, a city, a human city that has mostly just cleared out any native or natural flora and just pretty much plant what they want. Apis mellifera were shown to forage between multiple land use types, and because of this, there was higher rates of sugar and lipids in their food. In the De Silva 2024 study that will be shown on the next slide and where I got this information from, the land use patterns that they used or that they studied were meadows, forest cover, temporary crops, infrastructure, which would be homes, or anywhere with homes, roads, railways, silviculture, and just exposed plain soil. So this here is the study area, figure 3 of the De Silva 2024 study, and this was in Brazil, and they did research and include other species, but they definitely did center in and focus on Apis mellifera. And this is just like the study area that they used in Brazil, along with the topography, and then highlighted on the side is the city Sao Paulo, Brazil, and shows like the South America Brazilian states, and then just Sao Paulo. So bringing this all together, we are seeing that land use patterns can affect Apis mellifera food, habitat, and health. Urban land use poses threat of cadmium and mercury accumulation in honeybee bodies. Agricultural and urban land use patterns can destroy and degrade honeybee habitats and ecosystems. Honeybees often forage between different land use patterns, and as a result, their food is higher in lipids and salt. When asking what is the significance of this research question and these studies, Apis mellifera is critical to regulating and maintaining global food production. A third of human food is provided by honeybees. So this would be a great ecosystem service. And to continue receiving this ecosystem service that Apis mellifera provides, it is important to mitigate the negative effects of certain land use patterns on honeybee communities. Here I have my references. And thank you very much.